Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes? It's Matt here from YoVideogames. Our road to E3 2016 is nearly over, and we're down to the last big Zelda game that I have good memories of, and that is Twilight Princess. Now, Twilight Princess is an interesting game because it comes as a direct response to another Zelda game, and rather a negative response to another Zelda game. Now, look, I'm not going to debate whether or not Wind Waker was good, Wind Waker was beautiful, Wind Waker was this or was that. The point of the matter is, Wind Waker sold under expectations. Nintendo was very curious as to why this is, and Aonuma even asked Nintendo of America, and they basically told them, look, you're never going to get people to get over their hang-up over the cell shading. It's just a battle you can't win. So, for once in their life, and this is very rare for Nintendo, they basically swallowed their pride and changed direction of where they were going because of a direct response to a previous title. Now, Twilight Princess was announced at the same time that Reggie first came onto the scene, and this was a very big E3 for them. Speaking of E3s, in a way, this is good because in 2003, Nintendo had probably their worst E3 of all time. It was an embarrassment for them. Now, the only really neat game that was kind of announced there was Twin Snakes, which is an adult-ish title, but the entire tone of their whole conference, the games they were announcing and everything around it was very, very lacking. This was the E3 where we saw Mario Kart Double Dash and Star Fox Assault, but Nintendo decided to spend a huge portion of their press conference talking about Pac-Man Versus, a freed Pac-In title with one of the Pac-Man World games for GameCube. It wasn't even an actual full retail game. It was the E3 that Nintendo was trying really, really hard to push the connectivity between GameCube and the Game Boy Advance, and it basically fell on its face. Never really took off. Crystal Chronicles was nice, but it never really lit the sales world on fire, and there were very few games after that that really even took advantage of it. So 2003 was this really bad year for Nintendo. They looked like basically Fisher-Price on stage as opposed to Sony and Microsoft. So it was not a good time for Nintendo, it wasn't a good time for announcements, it wasn't a good time to be a Zelda fan in general. So next year comes along, and we have Reggie comes out on stage, this big fucking football player, linebacker coming out, and he basically sheds Nintendo's, family-friendly, squeaky clean, focused on the family image in one fucking line. And that was great because after his introduction, he announces, or shows off at least, Resident Evil 4, Metroid Prime 2, and some other big games for the GameCube. And then all that's all great, and all the DS gets announced, everything's really good, and then he announces one last surprise game. And this is probably the first time people became really aware, at least I became way more aware of press conferences, and they got much more attention, also because the internet had gotten a lot bigger. But this was big because Twilight Princess, in my mind, really started off the big E3 announcements. Now, of course, hey, I understand you could look back and say, no. The first E3 started with the surprise announcement of the Sega Saturn being released available that day. Okay, yes, true. But that's a little more obscure. When Twilight Princess was announced, it was big. And it was done very, very fashionably. It was done all kinds of presentation. Miyamoto coming out with the fucking Master Sword. All that good stuff. So the thing was, it was one of the most hyped games ever when it was announced, and then it took forever to get out, but it got out. And when it did get out, most people generally loved it. Now, it's had a little bit more of a critical backlash. After it's been out for a while, the graphics don't particularly age well. It came out pretty much as HD consoles had already released, so it was already looking a little long in the tooth even when it did release. But all that being said, how does it hold up as a Zelda game? Well, it really kind of depends on who you ask. See, the other side to this story about Twilight Princess being a reactionary game is that the Zeldas leading up to Twilight Princess were more experimental. Majora's Mask was obviously hugely experimental. Wind Waker was experimental, at least in its, not just its look, but even its gameplay with its sailing mechanics and whatnot. You had the Oracle of Ages and Seasons, which were more traditional, but they did experiment with this sort of password system going into it. Minish Cap a little bit as well, but not as much. And of course, Four Swords Adventure. So, Twilight Princess is a game that's made to be, as Iwata put it, 120% Zelda. It just follows the classic Zelda formula very closely rather than trying to be something new or unique. And in my opinion, this is more what I like. I like the more traditional Zeldas because we don't get Zeldas every year. Zelda's not Assassin's Creed. We get 1 or 2 per console generation. That's not a lot when you really think about it. I mean, a traditional console generation is 5 years, and then even sometimes even longer. So only getting 1 to 2 titles per generation, not that oversaturated in my mind. But then again, it's always good to have things that shake things up. So it's kind of, I can go either way on it. So, but I do like Twilight Princess because it has the traditional Zelda formula. It has big dungeons, and that's what I'm really big on dungeons, big on variety and scenery and stuff, which Twilight Princess definitely has over say, sadly, Wind Waker, which a whole lot of fucking blue and some dotted green islands. So that being said, I do like the HD versions of the games that come out. They do kind of fix some of the problems, and that's kind of the interesting thing about it, is that when we get to Ocarina of Time on, we now have remakes of these games to compare them to. We have the 3D versions of the N64 games, we have the HD versions of the GameCube games. So that being, you don't actually have to sit there and just play the old games. Like, you can actually have sort of refined versions. They refined some of the sailing and quest mechanics in Wind Waker. They refined a couple things in Tears of Light and some of the tutorial section, making it a little shorter Twilight Princess HD. So all in all, they're really cool. And what they really add is the hero mode, which is a lot of fucking fun, especially for people like me or hardcore gamers who are just too good at video games, and Zelda games are just too damn easy for some of us. So that's actually a really nice thing to have. But my favorite memory of Twilight Princess is playing the game for the first time, the final game. And I have a lot of fond memories of the E3 booth in 2005, which I could spend a whole video talking about, and how great it was, and how much I hope they bring that back this year, since Zelda's the only fucking game. But my favorite memory was playing the Wii version for forever. It felt like, actually, it didn't feel like any time passed at all. And I actually had to force myself to stop playing the game, just save it, take a break, and go get something to eat, because I hadn't fucking eaten in so long. And the Wii has a log chart. It logs how long you've been playing a game. And I looked at the log of Twilight Princess from the first time I played, and I had played for exactly 22 hours, 30 minutes. I had non-stopped that game that long, and only when I was dying of fucking hunger and starvation did I finally force myself to stop playing the game and realize I had been playing this video game for 22 hours, 30 minutes straight. It was awesome. It was awesome, and I loved everything about the game. I'm a little salty that we never saw any actual Gerudos, but there was a lot of intrigue into what possibly happened to them in the game. But other than that, like, it's a great Zelda title, and I love that it actually acknowledged the past Zelda games. Maybe not as much as Wind Waker, obviously, but it was still cool to see a different look at the future of Hyrule that was in a different timeline than the Wind Waker. So it's the Zelda game most people want. It's the best-selling Zelda game of all time. So, money talks, bullshit walks. Look, like, even if you really, truly do love all the other Zelda games, like Phantom Hourglass, Skyward Sword, or God knows why, or even Wind Waker, as much as you might love those games, as much as you might love the look of those games, the fact of the matter is, if we want Zelda to continue as a series, we probably have to stick closer to, say, a Twilight Princess aesthetic. Now, if Nintendo was a super business-oriented mindset, they would never make anything but Twilight Princess. But I actually am glad at the look of the other Zelda games. I don't mind when a game has the art style of Skyward Sword, even though Skyward Sword's art style doesn't translate well into the game almost at all. But the new Zelda game looks beautiful, and I actually like the fact that they're still trying a painterly look, but also keeping the more realistic aesthetics of Twilight Princess, but in a more colorful way. So I'm actually really down with that. I like the fact that Nintendo doesn't just sit on its sword, but at the same time, it's also good that the Zelda team can sometimes recognize we need to step back. We need to focus on what people actually want, because they're the ones supporting us. And Twilight Princess is the result of that. So it is definitely one of my favorite Zelda games. It's got some small flaws in there, whatever. I've recently playing the HD version on the channel. It was fun. It was great, and it reminded me, yes, this is a fantastic Zelda game. Like, fuck the haters. All that being said, let me know what your guys' memories of Twilight Princess are, and we are almost to E3, so this is probably going to be the last in that series. So thank you for any one of you who are watching this video and have stuck through all the way. I know it's not the most popular videos on the channel, but you know, I'll just thank you for anyone who actually stuck through it all the way to the end here. And I hope you're all ready for E3 2016. I'm fucking pumped and jazzed, and can't wait to see you on the live streams, because we'll be live streaming the first reveal of the game. You can check that out at twitch.tv/Maximilian_dude. And, you know, you can look forward to all our live reactions there, and all of whatever we capture at the show floor, or whatever our reactions are on the live streams afterwards during E3. So we'll catch you then, and I hope you have a great one. Later, dudes.